Support for WUWM podcasts comes from University School of Milwaukee, fulfilling a values-based mission of developing learners, fostering leaders, and preparing citizens for pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. More information at usm.org/mission.
Lake Effect brings you conversations about what's happening in Milwaukee and the people, places, and organizations that shape the community. This is Lake Effect Spotlight from WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR.
Aspiring actor Matt Kemple first came to Milwaukee in 2005. He'd only intended to stay for a year, but 20 years later, he's still here. During that time, he helped build the Milwaukee comedy scene, including through his work creating and running the annual Milwaukee Comedy Festival. The festival, now in its 20th year, kicks off today and runs through Sunday. Kemple was featured in a Milwaukee Record article in July, recounting his evolution from performer to producer. Kemple joined WUWM's Rachel Owens to talk about his 20 years of making Milwaukee a funnier place.
Now, you came originally to Milwaukee aspiring to be an actor, right?
Yeah.
And then how
That didn't work out.
So how did it evolve into being a comedy producer?
A lot of it came from the acting world. I got very involved in set building and lighting and sound design, that I got really involved with the back end of things. And that was actually how I was able to support my acting career at the time. I wasn't making any money as an actor, maybe a couple $100 for a month's worth of work. But I could make that in a week just from doing a set building or helping with the lighting design or getting up on a ladder and a wrench and, all kinds of stuff. So it started as more of a supplement to how do I support this career that doesn't have any support. It was really just like, okay, odd jobs. But all of those weird odd jobs were just things I were already in my industry. So the more that I did that, the more that I became the person in the room that people would look to. Hey, we don't know how to do this thing. Matt, you've done this before. You do it. And no joke. That's basically how I became a producer, is I just happened to be the one that knew how to turn the lights on. Comedy kind of came out of that world of acting and theater where I was meeting other creative people, and some of them had some improv experience, some of them had stand-up or sketch comedy experience, and I loved that aspect of it. And we would use these theater games, which are in a lot of ways, they're the types of games that Comedy Sports plays on stage. And I realized you can also do that and sell tickets to that kind of thing too. And it wasn't really any sort of a money-making endeavor at first. It was just came from this deep love of creativity. And I've always loved laughing. I've always loved, had an oddball sense of humor. I love dumb puns, and I love really intelligent humor, and I love everything in between. And I think that's a really unique skill. Most people can gravitate to one certain type of comedy, but for me, what can be funny is endless. So a lot of it came where comedy was this side project that I was doing while I was trying to focus on being a really serious professional in the theater world. And the more I realized what I was doing is that I was really building this comedy scene, which didn't exist very much in the past. And again, I was just motivated because I saw creativity in other people, and I was like, well, this is fun for me. Let me just help you guys do this thing. And I got involved in comedy, just helping on the sidelines, helping run the lights and sound for comedy shows. So it started little by little, and then all of a sudden it was turning into this, hey, there's all this comedy in town. We got to figure out a way to get all these people together and just do some big show. And that's how the Milwaukee Comedy Festival started, was a bunch of us in a room wanting to create art and be funny at creating that art. And everybody kind of twiddling their thumbs, wondering, well, how do we do this? And it was like, oh, you know what? Let's just put a big show on. It seemed so easy at the time to just say that and do it. And, 20 years later, I can tell you it has never been easy. But that love for what I do is still there and as deep as ever.
So you basically touched on it a little bit there, Matt. And I know you don't like to say this, but I'm going to say it for you. You basically started the comedy scene here in Milwaukee.
I didn't. No,
Come
I did
on,
not.
humble brag.
I think what it came down to is I just was motivated to see where can we really take this? What can we do to take it to the next level? And nobody said it was a bad idea. Nobody said don't do it. Honestly, I think that's what it was, is I didn't see any barriers to trying to create that. And I didn't know it was going to be a huge amount of work in this thing that I would continue to do for 20 years. It was just a one-off thing. We called it the first annual Sketch and Improv Festival, and I thought that was hilarious to call it the first annual, and was just out of my love of bringing people together. What better way to bring joy to a group of people than with comedy?
Yeah, so we are celebrating 20 years of the Milwaukee Comedy Festival. Give us a little preview what's coming up for this fall.
Sure. This year, I am ecstatic about our headliners and the venues and everything that we're going to be in. As some of the listeners know, I run the Laughing Top Comedy Club as well with my partners, Caitlin and Greg. And we closed the club down on purpose this summer in order to focus our efforts on opening a new venue. That venue won't be ready for the Comedy Fest, but that was also sort of by design. So this year, we have an incredible lineup of comics, the biggest being Patton Oswalt, who is one of my personal favorites and just somebody that would be a dream to work with. This year, to be able to get our big fish of Patton Oswalt, the voice of Ratatouille, and he's been on Name Your Favorite sitcom in the last couple of years, and he has probably had a cameo on there. Parks and Rec is a good one. He played a townsperson in Parks and Rec that did a filibuster and talked about the Mandalorian movie before it came out, and you can look this up. They actually took his improvised monologue from that television show, and that they based the opening scene of that on what he said. Yeah, Patton Oswalt is an incredibly talented comedian, actor, writer. He's done some really amazing things. So for us to be able to produce a show with him at the Pabst Theater is a dream come true. But we will be at Lakefront Brewery for the kickoff event this year on Tuesday, October 7th with Aparna Nancherla. And then we have the incredible Sean Patton, a different Patton, at the Cooperage on Wednesday, October 8th. I mentioned Patton Oswalt on that Thursday. And then that Friday, we're going to be at Shank Hall with Punky Johnson from Saturday Night Live and Comedy Central and a bunch of other things. Very funny. And then Saturday, we're going to be at Comedy Sports in the Garage Space, which is fun. And then we're going to close out at Great Lakes Distillery. We're going to be doing 2 shows. Should be a really phenomenal fest this year. I'm very excited.
And you must have a unique perspective on how comedians are being received by Milwaukee audiences, and also what might be unique to Milwaukee or Wisconsin comedy. So what do you think makes Milwaukee audiences and comedians special?
I think part of it goes back to sort of what I mentioned previously about myself. There is this level of creativity and excitement that people have in this city, and I think it's because we are a smaller, mid-sized city, and especially comedy. We're right next to one of the largest comedy markets in the world, which is Chicago. Chicago and New York are 2 of the largest comedy scenes in the world, but depending on what style of comedy, Chicago reigns more than New York in some ways. So to me, a Milwaukee comic, it's interesting because a lot of them, to get to the level that they are at, they have worked in Chicago. They have to do shows in Rhinelander and Cedarburg and Madison and Mequon and a lot of different places. And those are very different audiences. And that's something that's amazing about a Milwaukee comic, is that they have worked all those rooms and they have the ability to be funny to a very large number of people because they've had really good sets in those rooms. They've probably had really bad sets in those rooms. And you don't always get that from other cities. There's all those tiny little things that make Milwaukee a little bit different. And I think that's why you're going to get a unique flavor in the festival, not just because we have comics from all over, but because we have this incredible talent pool here in the city already.
And from that Milwaukee Record article, there was a quote from a Milwaukee comedian, AJ Grill.
One of my favorites in town, and a very funny guy who is one of those that I mentioned. He has done every sized room you can imagine. AJ has done shows for 5 people. He's done shows for 500 people. He's done shows even bigger than that. He is dedicated to what he does, and he's always trying to write new jokes. At least when I see him, that's how it comes off. So nice job, AJ, if you're if you're faking it. But he's doing great.
Well, and he returns the compliment because he was saying that Milwaukee would be a very different scene without the work that you've done for 20 years. I'm paraphrasing here. And he says that part of the reason that he never left the Milwaukee scene was because of the consistent work that he could get through the production and the possibilities that you were providing and Milwaukee Comedy were providing. So how does that feel to know that you've helped a comedian make it as a profession here?
You'll have to tell me. I think I'm blushing. Truly, I take that as a huge compliment. I do not take that statement lightly. That has always been the goal, I think, from the beginning, is let's create this scene that the rooms are full of people that want to laugh and the comics want to be there performing. And when it clicks, it clicks. When you have a room full of people that love to be there and love laughing, and you have a comic that's able to embrace that energy and that attitude, amazing things happen. And so that was always the goal. But for me to sit here and be told that I met that goal, that's an honor to hear. It's very humbling to hear, because to me, the work is never done. I don't see what I've accomplished as much as what I want to accomplish. I'm sitting here thinking about that new venue that we're hoping to open. I'm thinking about this comedy festival that hasn't happened yet. We've already booked these incredible talents. That's not even close to half the work that has to be done. We have to sell tickets to all those shows, and we can't just sell tickets to these shows and hope people show up. They have to be good shows. They have to be well run. They have to be quality venues and quality experiences for the people that come. So again, to hear that is something that I have already accomplished that's an amazing thing to hear. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to accept that.
We'll try. So if you were to go back to 2005 or about that time, and you're to sit yourself down, have a beer, what would you want to convey to yourself, younger Matt Kemple?
I think the first thing I would tell myself is not give up. I don't think I ever did, but there was a lot of moments that I wondered, what was I doing with my life? And again, comedy for a long time was secondary to my theater career. But comedy is what really spoke to me on a deep level, something that we can bring a group of people into a room and we can share joy is, on paper it sounds easy, but it isn't. And I love that challenge. I love finding new ways of being able to do that. I love trying to find ways of reinventing things we've done in the past. 20 years is a long time, and to reflect on that and realize that there are a lot of ups and downs when you're just trying to make people happy, myself included, but it's not easy. And there are a lot of times that you're sitting in a dark room, usually because there's a show going on, not just because you're that depressed, but you're sitting in a dark room wondering, have I wasted my entire life doing this? And then you have these moments, and sometimes they happen every week. Sometimes it's a couple times a year. Sometimes it's once in a lifetime. And I have experienced all of those where you put on the kind of show that defines your career. That's kind of the dragon I'm always chasing, so to speak, is I will have the best show of my career and I will enjoy that moment. And the next thought after that moment is, okay, how do we do this again? How do we do this even better? How do we take what we've done and take that to the next level? Yeah, there's this level of consistency in the comedy scene now. The idea of what comedy in the city of Milwaukee can and will be, that has now been consistent, I think. Maybe not for 20 years, but for a good decade at least. And that's really exciting. That's a new goal to kind of look at and say, oh, okay, yeah, well, we've set the bar. Now, are we just going to keep the bar there, or are we going to raise that bar?
What are you really passionate about in, say, the next decade or next 20 years? What would you like to see happen in the Milwaukee comedy scene?
I can't wait for the day that people have already heard of what I do. That might be a little conceited to say, but a lot of what I do is, wow, 20 years, I've never heard of it. And there was a period of time where I was very offended by that. A huge amount of time has gone by and it's humbled me. And it made me realize that, one, there's always room for improvement. There can always be somebody that's never heard of you. If you're not seeking it out, it can be something that you don't even know exists. And that is something that I can say has been exciting over the years, is that a lot more people know that Milwaukee is a place for comedy than they used to. Comedy exists in this city in a much bigger way. And that's no joke. People literally were getting their live stand-up comedy from Chicago. And the exact opposite thing is happening now. A good chunk of our audiences, especially at the club, are people from Chicago. So yeah, getting back to your question on what does the next 10 or 20 years look like?
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I haven't even thought about it because I'm so focused on what I'm trying to do now and in these next couple of years. But I would just like to see an expansion of what we already have. The idea that Milwaukee is an incredible place, not just for entertainment, but to live and work and breathe in the city and to enjoy just the nature in the middle of the city. I would just hope that as many people as possible can see the value in Milwaukee that I see.
And are there any dream gigs, dream comedians that you'd really love to see on one of your stages?
Yeah, there isn't nobody specific. I would just love the opportunity to work with the biggest names out there to prove to them that we put quality shows on. I want to work with people that have a lot of say in the comedy world so that they can say, hey, we went to Milwaukee. Yeah, Milwaukee. And it was awesome. And the people that put shows on there really care, not just about the performers, but they care about the venue. They care about the bathrooms are clean and that the floors are vacuumed. And I mean, just little things. Presenting a show of the highest quality allows you to work with the highest quality. And that's my goal.
That was Matt Kemple, founder and executive producer of the Milwaukee Comedy Festival. He spoke with WUWM's Rachel Owens. The festival kicks off today and runs through Sunday, October 12th. You can find more information and purchase tickets at mkecomedyfest.com.
You can find more interviews like this one by visiting wuwm.com/Lake Effect. And while you're there, subscribe to the Lake Effect Spotlight podcast.
Sources and methods, the crown jewels of the intelligence community. Shorthand for how do we know what's real? Who told us? If you have those answers, you're on the inside, and NPR wants to bring you there. From the Pentagon to the State Department to spy agencies, listen to understand what's really happening and what it means for you. Sources and Methods, the new national security podcast from NPR.